Hello, I'm Justine Willis-Toms. Welcome to the New Dimensions Cafe. Today I'm hosting Dr. Alan Briskin and Dr. Mary B. Gelinas. They are organizational consultants devoted to the art of conscious social and personal change, and are co-authors of Space is Not Empty, How Hidden Fields Are Shaping Your Life and Our Work. I'm speaking with Alan and Mary in their homes by remote connection. Welcome, Alan and Mary, to the New Dimensions Cafe.
Thank you, Justine.
Hi, Justine.
Your research reveals that we are embedded in invisible yet potent energetic fields. So what are these fields and how are they affecting us, and how might we affect them?
Well, we certainly live in fields that we don't necessarily see or notice. And fields for us are the space or territory in which interactions take place. And they are affected by forces that are visible and invisible. And they affect how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. So simply noticing them and noticing how they are affecting us is an important part of being able to influence them. But the important part is to notice initially what they are, but through direct experience in our bodies, in our minds, our hearts. What are we sensing inside about fields both within and around us?
I'm wondering, we have certain habits of mind, we have certain beliefs, and they're pretty entrenched. So how do we get out of our habits?
Well, I could start with a story because it's a story about feeling. I went to the post office a Saturday morning. There was no one there. The person behind the plexiglass window was looking a bit forlorn. And I bring my media mail with books in it, and she picks it up and said, is this the book? And I say yes, and she says, is it your book? And I say yes, and she says, well, what's it about? And we're still in a kind of regular conversation, just people ask me what it's about, but they don't usually listen when I answer, and so I tend to try to make something up, and so I gave a kind of vague answer, and I thought that would be it. She'd put the stamp on and I'd be out of the room. And then she just got quiet and looked up at me and said, where do books come from? The field in that space changed.
What a surprise. Maybe it surprised her, too, that she even asked it.
I think it did.
And there it is. That just expanded that field where it was a physical book and like, oh my goodness, I'm the wondering.
That is so beautiful because it's in the sense of wonder, wondering what's going on inside, wondering what's going on around me. And the brain can't resist a question. So it's in that wondering that a new space opens up, both within us and within the people around us, and perhaps even in the space around us, like in that post office with Alan and the woman working at the post office on a Saturday morning. That question just gets me every time. Where do books come from? I mean, she probably never asked that question before that moment. And that's it. That wondering about those fields opens up space for something really new to emerge so often.
What I'm thinking in that space, Alan, that caused her to ask such a huge question, to go so deep, is that you established a field of respect. You demonstrated some sort of presence, that you were there with her, and that elicited something else.
I think you're exactly right. I felt that. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, I'm trying to be respectful. It was, she's asked me a question, and I was, as best as I could, knowing that I couldn't go into, the details. I think she did feel I gave her my best answer at that moment. And it was about presence. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
um, I think I showed up, and she recognized that, and well, maybe I could say it differently. She recognized that I was looking at her, that I saw her.
Mm.
One of the things that I try and do, like when I'm in a store and people have a name tag, I try to read that
Yes.
name tag. And when I sign off and I say thank you, I'll say, thank you, Mary, or thank you, Alan. I use their name because I know how much I appreciate it.
Well, it reminds me, I grew up in New York City. I worked for my father as a delivery boy in Manhattan. And I remember saying that when you're a delivery boy in Manhattan, you can be invisible. No one
Mm.
sees you. You stick a thing in front of them and they sign it, but never look at you. And I remembered that feeling of being invisible. And
Mm.
it's the counterpoint to that. It's like we exist. Each person seeks some form of dignity. People may get used to not being seen. People may get used to being yelled at. People may get used to not being treated well. But behind that is an incredible receptivity to
Yeah.
people who see you and treat you with dignity. And that is the beginning of creating a different kind of field with each other. You asked earlier about fields in general, and I think the stories we're telling is that it's visceral. It's not this concept. Fields are felt in our bodies. It's felt in the tones of voices we use with each other. And it is a wonder that so much of what's in a field is not visible to us. That in some ways, it's by being present with each other that more things become visible to us.
I think of the work of David Bohm and his dialogue process, and
Mm.
to be surprised by each other, to not assume we know another person, but to listen deeply to who they are and what they're saying. And it might even change our own minds.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. And the key is to listen as if we are putting ourselves in that person's shoes. We are seeing, I mean, as Carl Rogers captures it, I'm paraphrasing here, to actually listen so that I can understand that person's experience, their point of view, what they're feeling, who they are inside. And, I mean, sometimes people get confused about, if I listen, does that mean I'm agreeing? No, they're separate. And the first step before working with someone is to really understand who they are, being present for who they are in that moment.
And I get from that not to be afraid to to ask.
Beautiful. And to not be afraid of changing my own mind based on what that other person has said. Oh, I never thought of it that way. What a remarkable thing to see one another through one another's eyes.
So if we walk into a room, let's say, and there's a gathering there, and it feels confrontational, it feels low energy, how can we change the norm of that field that they meet over and over, and this is the way they meet, and they've always done it this way, and some people get to speak and other people don't get to speak, and all of that? So here we are. How do we shift that old norm that in that field?
Well, one of my favorite tools, and you may have yours, Alan, is I use process observations in as neutral a language as I can. For example, I mean, this is really simple, but I'm noticing that two people have spoken several times, and I'm just wondering what the people who haven't spoken, what they're thinking. Or, I'm no, I'm feeling some tightness in my belly right now. Does anyone else feel that in here, or is that just me? So I'll try to name both what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing so that other people can chime in with that, because most of the time the field that evolves in a group is evolving outside of conscious awareness. And so if you can name it or say something about it, I'm noticing we're starting to interrupt one another. What's that about? Or the pace of this meeting is really picked up. What do you think's going on? It brings it to conscious awareness of the social field that's evolving that might or might not be serving the purpose of the group. What would you say, Alan?
Well, one, I just want to affirm that what is meant by process is the naming quality. It's seeing what's happening and being able to bring it forward. We're not always in a position to be able to do that in groups, but your very question suggests something very important about fields, which is fields are permeable. They can be influenced.
Right.
How we influence is a lifetime work. I think that Mary knows that my way of influence group is sometimes by disrupting what's going on. And I was describing this to some parents who have a brilliant child, but quote, with special needs. And I was talking about disruption as a vehicle for changing the nature of the field. And they told me a story of how they had a dinner with all their friends. It was going to be a vegan dinner, and they were all very conscious of the food that was being, prepared and how it would be served. And their daughter went and found antlers from an animal and brought it and put it in the middle of the table. It changed the atmosphere of the room while everyone was being so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being reminded, that they live that we live by eating other animals,
Exactly.
and so it's maybe paradoxical, but it comes from the belief that fields are permeable. It is the opposite of what we are internalized to believe, that things just are. So this is just human nature. This is just how groups operate.
That reminds me of a moment in my life when some women, we were meeting for the first time on a houseboat, and we didn't know each other. We were starting a women's circle. There were about 7 of us. And at some point, one of the women spoke up, and she said, we were trying to figure out how we're going to eat together, and it had to do with food. And she said, wait a minute, I'm going to do it my way. And I mean, she said it so forcefully, and we're all so shocked. It felt so non collaborative. It felt like there's no compromising there. And she then followed it by saying, and each of you can get it your way as well.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, talk about changing the field.
Yes.
That
Oh, wow.
just brought it up and saying we can have our opinions, but that's not a closed field. And I know one of the questions that I love when you're entering a field and you're not sure about it, one of those beautiful questions is, what is it I don't know?
Yes. It's such a great question. And it sounds like, well, that's kind of a stupid question. If I don't know, how am I, But there's some magic in it. What is it I'm not noticing? What is it I don't know right now? What is it that this group or this space or this moment wants to say to me? I mean, so it's opening up something deeper inside us and in the space around us, and something will emerge. I'm always amazed at how questions just open up space in such a, no pun intended, with the space is not empty, but it does open up a space for something new to emerge.
Yes.
It's such a wonderful question that you bring up, because it speaks to your earlier question. If we go into a room thinking, how am I going to change it? The last thing we're doing is noticing what's there.
Right, right.
The very question sets up the personal field and resistance with the larger field. The question, what don't I know, means you walk in closer to beginner's mind. You work in closer, trying to pay attention to the humility of that, as opposed to, oh, I know what's going to help the group. How do I get them to do that?
Right, right. And it challenges us because as the brain loves certainty, right? So it's like a doorway into another space inside of us, from certainty to,
Inquiry.
inquiry. Yes, from to
Yeah,
inquiry.
inquiry. Oh, great. I love it. I just want to thank you both for being part of the New Dimensions Cafe today. I've been speaking with Dr. Alan Briskin and Mary Gelinas, co-authors of Space is Not Empty, How Hidden Fields Are Shaping Your Life and Our World. And if you want to know more about the work of Alan Briskin, you can go to his website, alanbriskin.com. He spells his name A-L-A-N, Briskin, B-R-I-S-K-I-N, alanbriskin.com. And for Mary, you can go to gelinasjames.com, and she spells her name Gelinas, gelinasjames.com. Or you can get there through the New Dimensions website, newdimensions.org, where you'll find over 2,000 programs in our archive. I'm Justine Willis-Toms. I want to thank you for joining us at the New Dimensions Cafe, and I invite you, please do join us again.